to give a drosha and a few words. You know, one of the phenomena that is happening right now is that everybody is walking around with masks. I know that in Eretz Israel, they've allowed the shuls to open, and they're very careful where people don't sit together, but they sit in sort of allocated places or in the shul in a way that people are not too close. But really everybody, 99% are wearing masks. And the interesting thing about a mask is the story that I remember once mentioned in the Santin Shul many years ago, that in France, that they had a high society, and what they used to do on New Year's Day is that everybody used to dress up. They used to dress up as different characters, kings, queens, peasants, but they all had to have a mask. And when it came to the New Year's beginning, which was 12 o'clock at night to the end of December, 1st of January, so they had a big clock which rang, which chimed that the new year had come, and everybody unmasked. And everybody then saw who they were talking with, who were they in the ballroom with, and people were laughing. Person thought it was this person and that person. Person who was dressed up as a king was certainly not a king. A person who was dressed up as a beggar, he was usually had a little bit more money. And it was quite interesting revealing of character who they were. And that's such a insight in what's going here also. Imagine if somebody would have told you a few minutes ago that the Rabbanu Shalom, that God Almighty is going to organize and orchestrate that people throughout the world, South Africa, America, Israel, Brazil, are going to walk around with masks, you know. So I think it's crazy. I mean, the last time we saw masks was in the days of the cowboys, but and the people should all be walking with masks. So what does it tell us? What does it teach us? So really what it teaches us is that maybe the Rabbanu Shalom is perhaps the way we've been conducting ourselves to a certain extent. So therefore Hashem makes us sort of wear masks, you know, that he doesn't want to look at us in a way. And when we look in the mirror, we see a mask. You know, we don't see ourselves. So maybe who we really have represented, what we should be, is not what Hashem is seeing. In other words, that Hashem is seeing people that they haven't been quite what they should be during the year. So Hashem should sort of tells them, cover your face, right? And then he allows us to unmask. Now, what's very interesting is that we're living in a time, this time, that during the Sfiras HaOmer, the 49 days of counting from Pesach until Shavuot, that we have an opportunity to come to a climax on Shavuot, when it's the Kabbalas Torah, the receiving of the Torah, so that we could perhaps improve. And Hashem gives us 49 days in which to improve. Each day that we can learn, become a little bit better. We count the first day of the Omer, the 10th day of the Omer. We're already in the 40s already. Few days it's going to be Shavuot. So therefore, we have to take that opportunity to realize and to work on ourselves that Shavuos is coming, and that's the time that we're going to sort of unmask and to be better people. Now, a very interesting incentive to that is that the Talmud says, brought down in Pirkei Avot. In Pirkei Avot, chapter 6, it says, Rabbi Yeshua said that B'chol Yom V'Yom, every day, a bat call, a voice comes from heaven and says, woe unto the people, Torah, that they have shamed the Torah. In other words, that the giving of the Torah is not finished. It's still going on. Right there in the desert, in Sinai, that the Divine Shalom still allows a voice to be heard and calling upon the nations of the world to keep the Torah. The Zohar says that how was the world created? That God, the Torah, God looked into the Torah and he created the world. So if Hashem looked into the Torah and he created the world, in other words, the Torah is the blueprints of the world. And it's interesting, when I was looking at it this afternoon, and it doesn't say only to the Jewish people. It says, woe unto the briot, to the creatures of the world, right? Those are the people that were created, even those who are not Jews, because they were given the 7 mitzvahs of Bnei Noah. We've spoken about it before. That we say that perhaps this is where the epidemic comes from. That and says to the Jewish people, certainly, for we have 613 mitzvot, and it says that they don't keep the mitzvahs. And this is something that we have to work on, something that we have to improve upon in order to be able to sort of unmask ourselves. And Hashem say, oi, wait, put back your mask, that we don't want. We want that Hashem's, that he says, look, no person is perfect. And as time goes on, that a person unfortunately does do things which is something which is incorrect. So therefore the Rabbanu Shalom gives us opportunity after opportunity to actually to come a little bit better, to improve. So this idea is brought out, and it's been one of my famous talks also, some of you will remember in Santon, about a lighthouse. See, first of all, what is a lighthouse? A lighthouse is that it sheds light and gives direction to ships. So the closer you are to the lighthouse, there's more light, but you can be 1,000 miles away, if you can go that far. But it's certainly a couple of 100 miles away, and the light is a little bit dimmer, but it's the same light. And that's the same thing. When the Torah is given at Mount Sinai, so there were 2 million Jews who received the Torah, and they were close to Mount Sinai. So that was when the Torah was given in just approximately just over 3,000 years ago. But now that we are further away, but it's the same light. And you remember that story, the most beautiful story, those who haven't heard it, it's a masterpiece. Masterpiece is that there was a ship that was in the sea, and it actually lost itself. And it saw a light. So the captain thought that light was another ship which was coming to them. So the captain called out on the radio, and he says, called out to, the language of people at the sea and the navigator told him, turn to the right. He says, we have right of way, and you should turn to the right and allow us to pass. So the other ship says, no, we cannot do that. They did it once, twice, the third time. Third time, the captain was upset. He says, do you know that we have the admiral of the Navy on board? So since we have the admiral of the Navy on board, how you people, you have to listen. So the person on the other says, sir, he says, I respect who you have on board. He says, but we are not another ship. He says, we are a lighthouse, right? And a lighthouse can't move. And the fact is that you have to take a direction from the lighthouse. He says, you have to move, otherwise, unfortunately, you're going to end up on the locks. So the same thing is when it comes to Torah, when it comes to the things that we stand for, we have to know that we are like a ship in sea, and the lighthouse is telling us how to go. Sometimes we veer away from the correct direction and we don't follow the lighthouse. And unfortunately, there we can land up on the rocks. But the idea we really want to bring out is it's the Matan Torah is continuous. We say in davening that Hamachadesh b'chol yom ma'aser bereishis, like God recreates the world all the time. He's there at, pressing all the right buttons at the right time. That people shouldn't think that there's no God who watches our actions. He created the world and, went to do something else. That it's all the time that we have to do that what we are supposed to do. So that's a Machadesh B'chol Yom, who brings a new Ma'aser Bereishis, the beginning. Very interesting that in the Birchas Torah, that the blessings of the Torah, we also say, we make a bracha that Hashem notein HaTorah, notein HaTorah, that God gives Torah the Torah. He's constantly giving. It doesn't say Shon Natan, that only that he gave it and it's past tense and it's finished. But it's continuous. It's something which is an ongoing event. And that's why it gives us such a opportunity, such a feeling of when we daven, please God, this coming Thursday night, which is Shavuot, that we to daven and to feel that important days of the year, because that's the day when the Torah was given. Because Hashem said, "Im lo briti, if not for my covenant, kukot shamayim va'oris lo samti, I wouldn't have made the world." Hashem made the world in order to receive the Torah. We mentioned a very interesting phenomenon in the Torah. Every single Chag has a date to it, a date. Every single Chag tells us when it happened. We know Rosh Hashanah is the 1st of Tishrei, Yom Kippur is the 10th of Tishrei. We know that when Shavuos is, and Pesach is in Nisan, tells the exact date of Nisan. When we bring the Korban Pesach on the 14th, starts in the 15th. When Sukkot says, when it comes to the receiving of the Torah, there's no date. No date. It's that we know that the Talmud, of course, we learned out it's the 6th, and some say it's the 6th of Sivan, others say it's the 7th of Sivan, and we usually keep the 7th of Sivan as the receiving of the Torah, but there's no date. So we once explained that Torah wants us to keep counting, because if you lose count, you're going to miss the receiving of the Torah. But a fantastic limit lesson from that is that there is no date to the Torah. The Torah is timeless. The Torah is every single day of the year. Every single day we should learn. Every single day we should practice it. It's not like a Yom Kippur, which is once a year, or Shavuos, or a Simchas Torah, or a Pesach, which is either 7 or 8 days of the year. This is something which is every single day, 365 days of the year, solar year, and 48, whatever it is, of the way that we count. But it's what's important is that it's something which is each and every day, and it's a chance to able to reconnect to the Rabbi Shalom. There's so many interesting lessons that we've learned from these couple of months from the coronavirus. So many things we've mentioned, and I've heard. I'm sure you're here in South Africa. I've heard. And we've read what they write about in America, over here what's going on there with Israel. And I think that there's 2 mitzvahs which we should accept to try and do as much as possible. And that would be our kapora, that would be a atonement. And the one mitzvah which I actually heard at Rosh on Friday night, one of my friends from Tells, of Yusuf Sorotsian, wrote, and it says, and that is speaking in shul. Speaking in shul. So the word for a pestilence, epidemic, is dever. Dever is a pestilence. And dever is very close to the word dibur, is to speaking. And in the Shulchan Aruch, just saw it it's brought down in Orach Chaim, that a person shouldn't speak sichas chulim. You shouldn't speak chatter in the shul, especially during the davening. Especially during the davening, that a person shouldn't, not decide, I won't listen to the chazan, I've learned to this. And I know that from the days of Santon and poor Chazan Alter, sometimes used to stop, and because he's singing his heart out, and people are, or a rugby game. Says, but that's not what Hashem wants. And that's why I closed the shuls. He says, you come to shul to daven. You come to shul to listen. You come to shul to listen to a drosha. He says, you don't come to chat. Idle chatter. Idle chatter is something which Hashem really doesn't want. So there's a very striking story which Rabbi brought down, and it says in a shul in Austria, it was in a frum town, but people were being hit by a terrible plague, and the Rav, who was a Choshev Rav, he writes before the days of the Mashor, it must have been the late 1700s, early 1800s, somewhere around there. So the Rav called everybody to fast, says, what's going on? So one person says, if anybody can tell me that there's somebody doing something very wrong. So the next day, somebody came to the Rav and says, look, I don't want to say Lashon Hora, but I've noticed that this person, and he said who his name, that comes to daven even Friday night in shul. He pretends to go to shul and he goes into the forest. And I don't know what he's doing in the forest, but maybe he's the cause of all our tsuras. So the Rav says, we've got to follow him, investigate. So they sent someone to that person. So he saw that the person, he went into the forest and was davening and saying Tehillim and praying over there. And then he heard two voices and a little bit of crying. So the person came back and says, this is what happened. He says, let's call the person in. Called him in. He says, I want to know what you're doing. He says, look, I really cannot tell you. He says, no. He says, I demand that you tell me why you were in the forest and we heard another voice. You see, you're not doing anything wrong, but maybe you can enlighten us. Because I want you to know, he says, Yirmiyahu comes to me, and we cried together for the destruction of the temple. And he says, you know why this is going on in our generation? He says, because the way that people don't have covered for a shul. They don't have the proper cover, the proper honor. They come during the laning, chatter. Rabbi, he's got to speak loud because he's got competition in the pews, and some listen, some sleep. Sleeping is not so bad, right? But not as bad as talking. So that is one of the things that never comes from dibur, and this idea has really been going around and being spoken out very much. So I think now that the shuls are being opened up, please God, in South Africa soon, in America soon, in Eretz Israel, that for the first time in nearly 3 months, 2.5 months, I started davening in a shul. Otherwise, I haven't been davening in a shul. and they're beginning to open up. People are wearing masks, but now we have to be extra careful. And then Hashem will allow it to be kept open. Then the second thing is, so I said two salient points amongst whatever it is, that the other ideas from what is going on today, and that is Shabbat. Shabbat is that we've been locked in. So Hashem is telling us straight. He says he's not only locking us in for Shabbos, locking us in the whole month. And that some people, 2 months, 3 months, I was in the Greece yesterday, and one person says, the first time I ventured out on a bus in nearly 3 months. And we also were just about the second time we've been just about out. So that there's an opportunity now that Shabbos is so very important. We gave a talk about it, write about it, and I feel it's like the best advice to give is to try and keep a proper Shabbos. So I mentioned in one of the droshes just recently that one of the congregants from Santon told me over the phone, he says, I'm doing my best. He says, I've never had the opportunity for whatever reason. And he says, but now I'm doing it. So to light candles in time, to make kiddush in time, there should be a nice meal, that people, you can get through a Shabbos without TV. So that what's Saturday night, you'll hear what's all the news, and to keep it like Hashem wants us. And it's such a beautiful, beautiful day that you have to speak about that even a little bit more. But perhaps, that if we come to Shavuot feeling to be confident that we are worthy of being able to walk without the masks, that we unmask ourselves, we go into the shuls, we know how to give respect, and we also know that we should have a pleasing face to the Baruch Shalom, because this is something that, like two good I wouldn't say your resolutions, but a good resolution for right now, that at this time that it should be a schus for us, a merit. And if we do that, then please God, then that the machala will go away, the sicknesses will go away, Hashem will be pleased, we'll be able to get into planes, we'll be able to visit each other, we'll be able to have good times together, we should all be healthy. Please God, those people who are still sick, they should be recovered and be well. No other people should. It should be a new world. The world is certainly going to be a different world, absolute different world. But it should be for a better world, and that we should be able to do all the things we want to do, safe and sound, with good health. Okay, thank you.